Welcome back, friends. Tonight we are reading To the Dead in the Graveyard Underneath My Window by Adelaide Crapsey. Written in a moment of exasperation. How can you lie so still? All day I watch, and never a blade of all the green sod moves to show where restlessly you toss and turn, and fling a desperate arm, or draw up knees stiffened and aching from long disuse. I watch all night, and not one ghost comes forth to take its freedom of the midnight hour. Oh, have you no rebellion in your bones? The very worms must scorn you where you lie, a pallid, mouldering, acquiescent folk, meek inhabitants of unresented graves. Why are you there in your straight, row on row, where I must ever see you from my bed, that in your mere dumb presence iterate the text so weary in my ears, lie still and rest. Be patient, and lie still. And rest. I'll not be patient. I will not lie still. There is a brown road runs between the pines, and further on the purple woodlands lie, and still beyond blue mountains lift and loom. And I would walk the road, and I would be deep in the wooded shade, and I would reach the windy mountain tops that touch the clouds. My eyes may follow, but my feet are held. Recumbent as you others, must I too submit, be mimic of your movelessness with pillow and counterpane for stone and sod. And if the many sayings of the wise teach of submission, I will not submit, but with a spirit all unreconciled flash an unquenched defiance to the stars. Better it is to walk, to run, to dance. Better it is to laugh and leap and sing, to know the open skies of dawn and night, to move untrammeled down the flaming noon, and I will clamber it through weary days, keeping the edge of deprivation sharp, nor with the pliant speaking on my lips of resignation, sister to defeat. I'll not be patient. I will not lie still. And in ironic quietude, who is the despot of our days and lord of dust, needs but, scarce heeding, wait to drop grim, casual comment on rebellion's end. Yes, yes, willful and petulant, but now as dead and quiet as the others are. And this each body and ghost of you hath heard, that in your graves do therefore lie so still. The end. So before we really jump in on the analysis or talk about the author, I'm just going to give you a second. You can pause the video if you'd like to laugh at poor little Adelaide Crapsey's last name. We good? Okay. So you're going to feel bad about laughing at her last name because this is a posthumously published poem. That's a lot of P's. It is Poetry for Thursday. So Adelaide died very early in her career. She was younger than me when she passed away. She was 36. Adelaide did a lot with her life. She graduated from Vassar, and then she went on to be a history and English professor, and then she invented a whole poetic form, which is actually very similar to haiku and tanka, where you count syllables, but she didn't just want to count syllables, she also counted stressed syllables. It's called an American cinquain. It's a 5-line poem, that's why they call it cinquain. That's why she decided to call it cinquain. So it goes 2 syllables, 4 syllables, 6, 8, and then back to 2. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 stressed syllables. There's a whole section in Verse, which is the book that this poem was also published in posthumously, about a year after her death. She was working on editing it when she ultimately passed away. Here's a cinquain just to kind of like give you an example. A maze. I know not these my hands, and yet I think there was a woman like me once, had hands like these. And it's kind of a fun, interesting idea to play with, just because that last line carries so much meaning for the rest of the poem. Adelaide knew well in advance that she was going to die because she had a disease called tuberculosis meningitis, which even today is incredibly difficult to treat. It takes months and months of medication to treat something like this, and even then, the outcomes are not great. So Adelaide knew well in advance that she was going to die, and several of her siblings actually predeceased her, so she was, I don't want to say comfortable with the idea of death. She knew that she was going to die. There was no way to treat this particular disease. It was just kind of like a matter of when. And as her disease progressed, she went to a series of rest homes. And this particular poem, To the Dead in the Graveyard Underneath My Window, was actually written in a rest home in Saranac Lake, New York. And if you're kind of familiar with the topography of upstate New York, it very much is grounded in that topography because there's just woodlands and then the Adirondack Mountains just rise up. She's actually buried in Mount Hope Cemetery, which is also where Frederick Douglass was buried, and it makes the news pretty frequently in the United States just because Susan B. Anthony, who was one of the main driving forces of the suffragettes, was also buried there, so pretty much every election cycle women will go and stick their I voted stickers to her headstone, and it's the same place, and she has a very small, modest little headstone, and it's so sad because, well, I mean, obviously it's sad she died, but she never actually got to see any of her poems in print. She was in the middle of editing and putting together verse, but she never got to see it actually published, and it's one of those things where she invented a whole form by herself, and what could have been, right? As the text of the poem reflects, and as her own personal correspondence and her own personal words reflect, she was very much not get ready to die. She didn't want to go silent into that good night. She wanted to run and move, and one of the main symptoms of the disease that she died of was just exhaustion, fatigue, and so when she was at these rest homes, that's the central conceit of the poem. That's why she's saying, I want to go climb these mountains that I see, but I can't, because I am in this bed, and the thing that I see from this bed is this graveyard, and then beyond the graveyard is just life that I will never be able to see, and it's just so, it's really, really heartrending in a lot of ways, especially because she is who she is, and she did what she did. Thanks for sticking around with me for this low-key kind of depressing analysis. If you like this poem, make sure to go down below and hit like, so I know that you want more things like this. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe so that you'll never miss a Thursday. I'll see you next time.